Welcome back to Reaper Pro Tips with me, your host, Anne, and Disembodied Hands Quindy, along with our faithful and devoted friends, Justin and John. Kiki, are you going to come? Oh, you brought your bone. Why did you bring that gross thing? Kiki says no. Drive by. I have a fresh bone. Bye, guys. No Kiki attack this morning. She thought about it. She has both muddy paws and a raw bone in her mouth. But she's like, nope, I'm going to go and chew this. That works. That's why I gave it to her. Distractions. So it worked. It worked. I'm successful. How are you all today? It's a dreary, rainy day, cold day here in the Bay Area. But I have hope because, you know, in 2 days, March will be here, and I'm hoping that it will get warmer. Hoping that the groundhog was wrong. So, hi, you've got to drop that if you're going to come up here and say hi. Okay? Come on up. Kiki, come on up. What? Okay. I know. Okay, take your bone. Come on. Oh, you are such a dork. Hold on. Expelling the Kiki. Large distraction. Here. Get your bone. Get it. Yeah. I want you to settle and chew. Now I have to wash my hands. Yes, go eat your bone. And then of course I had to wash my hand because I touched raw meat. It's a frozen marrow bone. Actually, Agent Marvel, we can see from my house in Mountain View, we can see two sets of mountains. The interior mountains, which are usually brown, but are green now because, you know, they get a lot of rain in the winter. But then there's the Santa Cruz Mountains, which are between us and the coast. And those actually, for the first time since I've been here, those had snow on the very top. They're not super high mountains. You can essentially drive right over them. But yeah, they're tall enough to loom over the town. And yeah, they finally, like the bald spot, there's a bald spot. It was all white. So it's a very, very rare year where you actually get snow in this area. So David was kind of disappointed because he's like, if I would have thought sooner, we could have driven Kiki up there and gotten her some snow exposure. You know, she's never seen it. But we thought too late. We thought yesterday, and at that point, the rain had probably melted it, so. Huh? No, I had to say bye to Kiki. Yeah, chew your bone, you silly dog. I thought I could leave the door open because I just gave her a fresh marrow bone to chew, Shadow Raven. But she wanted to bring her bone in here and put it on my lap. So it was very disruptive, so I decided to shut the gate after all. But yes. So yeah, so we did have snow like within viewing distance of here. And then during the winter, if there are some days I drive out to Sunnydale, then the mountains that are between us and the inland, I can see snow on the very backs of those. When I was driving south, I think, is it the Sierra? I forget which mountain range is right there, kind of hemming in the California Valley, but that mountain range was very, very snow covered. But yeah, around here we almost never have it, and on those Santa Cruz Mountains, like very rare. So yeah, all that. But none for us. We're in the valley. The very start of the valley. But yeah, how are y'all? We're going to do... Oh, I totally forgot to grab my copper. Well, while y'all tell me how your weekend was, I will grab my copper colors. Which I untactically left over here. And I totally forgot to make a Reaper order this weekend, so now I have to hustle. I might have to work on Jeannie one more week. Or unless I guess I have some. I do have some bones. There was one other model that we haven't done. I wanted to do this sword lady. I really kind of like her. She's, I like a good female warrior. So I could always throw her in place of Jeannie or look around, scrounge around in my other stuff. I'm sure I've got a bunch of nice models that we haven't tackled yet. Yeah, so Sierra Nevadas, that's it. Yeah, there was a lot of snow in those mountains when I was driving to Arizona. But Santa Cruz Mountains, totally different. Not usually snowy. Yeah, so I might toss her in place of Jeannie. Depends on how I feel. I'll just I like to stay a little bit flexible. Like, I have a planning brain, but sometimes there are days when I just want to stay a little flexible. So, all right, Fishy, I had to prop him up. Let us get him. Let's zoom out and get in focus. In focus on the fish. Yeah. Oh, D&D, nice. Oh, no. That's what Goliath PCs are for, right? To totally make the wrong choice. And I get this from Critical Role. Oh, dear. Dear me. Yes, probably not an auspicious start, huh? Alrighty. So let's mix up our copper colors. We have to do his rings, and we have to do the little cage down here, and I have to do the detailing on the leather. Then all I have to do is the leather. So we'll see how far we get today. David is constructing a cool base for his privateer entry for since he's going to Adepticon. I convinced him that he should enter the Grandmaster because they didn't have a ton of entries last year, and I feel like we should encourage them to continue because they weren't sure if they were going to run it this year. But I feel like we should continue encouraging them to run a competition. So the only way to do that is to enter, and since I'm not going, it's all him. But yeah, he's working. I forget what the name of the model is. It's a weird one. Totem Huntress, I think. That's the model that he's doing. It's a model he's had in progress for a long time. So essentially, when I told him he should enter, he went looking through his stuff that he had kind of started and not finished, and he decided to do her. And David's really good with like cork and putties. He builds really realistic like stonework and stuff. I really like his compositions. That it's really, I mean, what he does is really easy. It's just, takes time to build up the cork shapes and to figure out what you're going to do. He also taught me a trick yesterday, which is if you are using a rough block, like one of these cheapo ones, and you want to get the sides super smooth and not show the wood grain, it takes effort, it takes time, but you can essentially put a layer of super glue over it. He uses to roll the super glue across the surface. He uses the little cardboard rollers that are from the middle of our poop bag rolls. He found a use for them. I knew he would, because he's David, but it's super hilarious. But yeah, he's like, yeah, use the poop bowl rollers. But yeah, so he puts super glue all over it and rolls it so that it's more or less even, lets it settle in and soak in. And then he takes, when it's thoroughly dry, it's essentially made a smooth, hard, cyanoacrylate coating that he can then sand and polish to a very smooth surface with various grades of sanding sheets. So he essentially gets it to where it's like super slick. Like it feels like plastic. It doesn't feel like wood anymore. And of course these blocks are so cheap. So essentially I wanted to tell you guys about this because with a little effort, if you're willing to do it, if you don't have access to a lot of fancy plinths, you can get a beautiful, really smooth finish on these guys. You'll lose the wood grain. But the wood grain on these typically isn't that great anyway, and sometimes it's contradictory where they've like kind of blocked. You can see here where there's a join where they've taken it was a bit different. So if you want to just make it super smooth and polished and professional looking, consider doing that super glue trick. He'll do green stuff at first. If there are big imperfections like this, he would take green stuff and cover over the big stuff. Then and essentially tamp it down as smooth as he could, and then he would do the green. He would sand the green afterwards, but then he does the super glue over the top of that. Yes. It takes a bit of effort, but it doesn't take any money. And that's why I wanted to bring it up here. Although, of course, you're using quite a bit of super glue. But then, super glue isn't going to cost you that much. I think he uses Gorilla Grip super glue. We also have Loctite, but I think I'll have to ask him which glue he was using. I assume it's one of the medium-bodied glues, because it actually will self-level. Nothing like a gel. You wouldn't want to use a gel or a semi-gel. So yeah. So there you go. Base trick. Poop bag cardboard insert not required. I still think that's super funny because apparently I'm 12, but that's all right. That's all right. Toilet humor is welcome here at Reaper. I can speak through experience. Ah, dear. And you know I'm right too, Quindy. Uh-oh. There we go. But now I have to get on and I need to put in a Reaper order. I need to do that today. I probably need to put it on my phone so I remember to do it. Because I do want to pick up some new stuff. So I will put that on my to-dos right now. I have a lot of to-dos today. I have my paint-along stuff to get done for the Patreon today and tomorrow. And then I've got an author thing that I'm watching today. Thank you for the plug there, Quindy. There's my Patreon and my YouTubes. My YouTubes does have some free videos on painting fundamentals. I keep meaning to get back to finishing that up because I've got like 3 other videos I want to do for it. And time. So I really need to put it on my calendar and just go ahead and shoot those 3 videos. All right, let's put a little bit of the basic copper with remember I'm mixing the tarnished copper with our new copper and then putting some yellow in there to make it a little warmer for the highlights. And then I'm using russet brown as the shadow because it's a great tarnished copper color. No problem, missed him. Yeah, I was doing freehand. So my Saturday stream on twitch.tv/paintingbig, we blocked in the rest of this freehand up here. We just have a little panel that we've got to do. I decided I was in the mood for mindless freehand and decided I wanted to map in a bunch. But you can see how long, it was almost an hour and a half stream and it took a long time. Most of that is because I was working out what design I wanted to do. And then I was also touching it up and tightening it as I went. But once I have the design, this part will go much faster and then I can start working down here. So I decided that getting the freehand done on that would inspire me to finish the NMM, which is really what I'm not feeling right now. So I want to finish her. I like her. I've really liked the model since I first saw her, and I like what I've done with her. I just need to have the oomph to. She's quite intricate, right? And I started all that freehand, so that's quite intricate. So then there's a lot of inertia that you have to get by when the model is sat for a while. What I'm learning about myself, and this is always useful, to kind of look at yourself when you're painting, kind of look at yourself and figure out where your pain points are. Figure out what makes you kind of stall out on a figure. Just kind of notice how you feel. And usually you really have to pay attention to how you're feeling. Like when you look at a model and you're like, I just don't feel like it. Kind of figure out if there's a pattern to that. And with me, what I have found, and I noticed this a while ago in my life and then forgot it, as we do, right? But what I have found is if I do not push forward on a model I am very excited about and just go and finish it while I am excited about it, I'll ground out on it. And I may or may not ever go back to it. So for me then, what I can take away from this is that I really should be working on one piece at a time. Maybe 2, but probably 1. It really depends, right? Because I need to work on the model when I'm excited about it. She is an avatar work in purple, you are correct. For me, it is kind of fuel, though, Big Chimpo, because if I'm excited about a piece, I can generate energy for it. Like it does that for me. Whereas after that point, depending on how far I've come, right? That's why there are some other ways that I can get energy pennies back for a piece, right? One of them is actually to put the piece all together. So that's why I actually put Anubis almost completely together so that I could see him, the fact that he is almost done. And that helps motivate me because then I'm like, oh, there's only a few steps left for me to finish this, right? So Anubis was never in a lot of danger because I brought him to a point where, okay, I'm close now. I'm close, and I have a few steps, just a few more steps, like a handful of steps left to really get him finished. That's because I think about it so much, Big Chimpo. I'm self-actualization painter girl, like I really am. And I'm also, part of my brain loves systems, and part of my brain is always trying to figure out ways to be more efficient with my systems. And so because I'm just that kind of thinker. And so that's why I think so much about how can I hack myself, right? Like, and also I try to be self-aware. I try to pay attention to how I'm feeling about, because a lot of painting, when you love a hobby and you do it because you're excited about it and you love it and, you know, it makes you relax, it makes you feel good. Then when you get a disconnect in that, it's worth noticing how you feel and thinking about why. Right? And you might come up with some easy explanations at first, but you should keep thinking about it because sometimes you have to get down to that base level of, oh, I was really excited about this, but then I got distracted by a different piece, so I didn't finish it. And now it's going to be much harder to finish. It's going to feel like a slog, right? If you've lost excitement. So along with like constructing the model and putting it together, or maybe building a base for it, if you like that sort of thing, that can give you energy back and enthusiasm back for the model. The other thing that you can do is just kind of make, if it works to break down the remaining work to make it small steps, that can help as far as getting your energy back on a piece. The other thing that I can do is if I totally put her away, if I put her completely out of sight for like a month, and I put on my phone a reminder 1 month, take out Priestess model, take out Limbo Priestess, and do a step, right? Do the next step. Then I could maybe get some energy back on her, because if I take her away and bring her back, it renews kind of that new thing, and maybe, this isn't reliable, but sometimes it works, maybe I'll remember what, how I was inspired, how excited I was about her, right? So all those things there are now tools that you can try to use, and everybody's brain is different. Like, so different. Like, 1 in 33 million people have your kind of skill set and thinking style. Like, seriously. You are very unique. And so your roadblocks and the things that excite you about a project and the way you tackle a project and the things that you get energy from are going to be different. I'm a planner. I'm a strategic brain. So for me, I get like order, method, and routine, and I also have focus. So if I'm focused on one project, I iterate faster, that sort of thing. It's funny because I used to, thanks Frank Pates. Yeah, so we're talking about like what excites you about a model and ways you can hack your mind to keep going on something if you've lost interest in it, or ways to think about it, right? Ways to think about your painting motivation when you notice that you're losing it. Yeah, right. And there are a lot of us strategic thinkers out there. But yeah, so it just helps to kind of like think about like, why did I lose interest in this? And what's funny is that for a long time, I had a lot of different projects going at the same time, right? Lots, like a dozen, easy, like maybe more sometimes if how many I'd start and just put aside. But what I have learned about myself is that I've been tightening that, right? I've been working on fewer things. And last year, I decided, no, I really have to have only 3 open projects that I'm working on. And what I'm noticing now is that it's just getting narrower and narrower. So I'm going to come down to the point where I'm working on 1 project at a time. I can just feel it. I feel it in my bones. So that's going to be interesting, because right now I'm just like feeling, oh God, I really want to, I've got 3 models and I want all of them done. And of course that's not practical, and I'm a slow painter, right? So if you're a fast painter, you probably don't have this problem, but maybe you do. Maybe you just have even more models that you start, right? And you just lose focus. Oh yeah. Good, good, good. That's good. Take advantage of it, Frank. Because that's what started all this, is I was talking about how I had stalled out on this figure for so long. And I love her, and I've wanted to paint her for ages, and I was so happy to be able to order her in the Limbo Kickstarter. But this weekend, I finally got back to doing the freehand. And the things that have stalled me out on her are just like the freehand, doing all the freehand that I started and doing all the NMM on this figure is really, I'm fighting inertia, right? So what I needed to do was to, when I started her, when I was so excited about her, I needed to just push through and get it done. But I didn't. I let myself get distracted by my now husband, then fiance, getting me this guy who I really love, right? So I got distracted by another project, and then she got set aside, and it took me months to go back to her, right? And I might never have gone back to her, except that I've tried to keep so few projects on my plate that there's really just a couple of things, right? Yeah, so what I've found about myself, and I was bringing it up in the hopes that it would help some other people on this stream, but what I have found about myself is that when I am excited about a model, I should push through it and get as much done as I possibly can while that excitement level is high. Because once that excitement level goes lower, and with me, it tends to, my brain gets bored. My muse gets bored. She's like, yeah. And she's good at focusing, but then if I don't pay attention to her, she'll wander off. So I really need to like sit down and just like push until the excitement naturally starts to taper off. And honestly, by that point, I'm probably almost done with the figure, just like Anubis. And then they're not in any danger, because Anubis has so few steps left to get him done. Like, I just need to do the bone work. I need to adjust the firework a bit. I need to finish the other side of the staff, and I need to do the base, and the base will be fun because it's just stone texture. So I only have like easy stuff left on him, and then he'll be done because I pushed through him like fast. So yeah, it's not necessarily ADD. It's actually what I'm learning. It's also a part of my psyche, right? It's all I've been doing this. You guys know I'm all about like self-evaluation, like quizzes and stuff. So the one that I'm working on right now is the Clifton Strengths model, which is actually backed by like 40 years of research. So it's for serious. But one of the things I have is called Learner. So if you are like me, you love the learning process. You just tend to jump from class to class and topic to topic, and you're just like, I love to learn. And it's not necessarily that you're seeking mastery so much as you just love learning new things. So if you are a person who like picks up a new hobby every 6 months or every couple of years or whatever, because you're like, it just energizes you to try and learn something new, you've got this. And one of the pitfalls of this, if you have this kind of brain personality thing, is that you get bored. And so know that you will, and concentrate on using the energy when you've got it. Use the excitement while you've got it. Now, there are also people whose muse does have ADD, where people who are like, if you're a very adaptable person, if you just love jumping from one thing to another, you love the challenge, you love the rush, you love the everything, then you're somebody who, yeah, you probably have muse ADD, where you're like, you know that you'll only have the focus on the model for a little bit of time, but that's okay. You're okay with that. Because that's maybe your strength. That's just maybe something that you can do. And maybe you paint fast. If you paint slow like me, then if you have that kind of mind, I'd advise doing what I do. Finish one small part of the model at a time instead of doing like the base coat and then letting it sit, and then doing the wash and letting it sit. Work what works for you, right? But I find like just if I only have like an hour and a half to work on something, and then I know I'm going to probably lose interest and wander off to another mini, I'll try at least to get a section done so that when I come back to the figure, I'll be like, oh yeah, that part looks good. I'm all excited to work on this figure again. That kind of thing. So, but everybody's brain is different. And the hard part about being an instructor in a creative discipline like miniature painting, as I've been teaching this hobby for a very long time at this point, the hard part is once you learn that everybody is so different, you understand how you need to modify your teaching style, right? Like a lot of beginning instructors go in thinking, hey, it worked for me, it's gotta work for them. But that's not true at all. This is why when we try to learn something creative and we're duplicating somebody famous who we're like, oh yeah, well, it works for them, it's gotta work for me. But that's not true. It may not work for you at all. And that's why. It's because you think differently. You're motivated by different things. The things that keep you excited about a project aren't the same as that person. So that's why I'm always talking on this stream about finding your own way. And sometimes it feels like feeling along in the dark, right? And sometimes you're like getting results and you feel all right, but you're like kind of like it's still not optimal. You know, you can sense that you're missing something, and that can be hard. So then it kind of like paying attention to the things that really pump you up and the things that don't is a smart idea. All right, getting my colors all mixed up here as we're sitting and talking about motivation and mini painting, which is one of my favorite topics. But yeah, it's more than anything else, it's figuring out how your own brain kind of jives and what you can do to help yourself have a higher chance of success. Those are the things. Those are the things. All right, so we got some pure white. And I'm going to add a little bit of yellow to these guys. I'm doing some mixes. So this is russet brown with a little bit of the tarnished copper. This is tarnished copper with a bit of the copper highlight, the new copper. This is a mixture of new copper with a bit of the tarnished copper. And then there's pure white for my highlight. I'm going to drop some yellow into this one and just a touch into that one. Probably candlelight, because I started with a pretty dark base. I could use lantern or candlelight for this. I want to use a warm yellow. I don't want to fight it by using a off yellow, a pale or a greenish yellow. There we go. 2-to-1 on the white, because you want it to be thin enough to underpaint with and to do spot highlights, but thick enough to actually, you know, give you that spot highlight without fighting too much. So if I just wanted a yellow shift here, then I'll use lantern. If I want to make this lighter, then I'll use candlelight. I think what I'm going to do is to use lantern on this one, just a tiny touch, because I want to keep this as a mid between these colors, and I want this to be a little lighter. You doing good, Pa? Did you get your bone? Yeah, it's dark in there, huh? The rain is going right now. Pa's hanging out over by the gate. So, Kiki is 8 months old today, by the way. And I'm hoping for more adult brain cells. Uh-oh, dropped a pokey tool. Where did it go? Oh, it's all the way down there. Oof. 1 second while I crawl under my desk. Yeah, welcome back to the hobby. Hey, Frank. It's changed a lot in 15 years. Although, not a ton, right? Because, I mean, it has changed a lot, I think, because more people are doing, more people are playing with pure pigment colors now. More people are airbrushing. More people are underpainting. More people, you know, Zenith is the thing now. Zenith priming, stuff like that. So, like, the nice thing about getting back in the hobby now, Frank paints, is that things like the Zenith prime and everything, like, actually make it a little bit easier, depending on the level you were at when you quit, when you fell out of the hobby. But there's, like, tools, and there's so much on the internet now that you can find for free about painting, right? My own channel, I've got a bunch of fundamentals videos, and then there's so many other mini painting channels out there. Yeah. She's less chompy with me, Kodiak, but she's still chompy with David, and I have to wonder why. Like, I kind of feel like maybe he gets frustrated with her faster, and I've just learned to be, like, really calm with her, really even-keeled. And so she doesn't think I'm playing. You can't wait for adult brain cells, yeah. Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, there's tons of stuff. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, thinning paint started, like, when I was winning my Golden Demons in 2003, like, the new style of painting that now is the norm had begun to creep in. But, yeah, the word wasn't really out there, right? And now there's so much. I'm going to put just a little bit of lantern in there. Lantern doesn't have the white that candlelight does, so if you don't want if you're adding yellow to a color, but you don't want it necessarily to get lighter, at least not significantly lighter, pick a yellow that doesn't have any white, which is like lantern, canary. Although just because it is a lighter pigment, it will shift it slightly. But yeah, right now I'm thinning about 2-to-1 with everything because I've already got a base coat on the copper here. And since I undercoated these rings with white, I'm pretty much thinking it'll cover, even though I added water. We'll find out in a second when I finish doing this. Let me stir the yellows in here. Oof, that shifted that a lot. I'm going to have to actually... So this was too much yellow, and Lantern packs a huge punch, and that went really, really orange. So now I'm going to have to back out. Oh, we noticed a slight improvement at 6 months. The Corgi Shark, hopefully, because he's a smaller dude, and once his mouth feels better and everything. Is he feeling better after his surgeries? His tooth extraction and his loss of his manliness? There we go. So I just had to throw in some more tarnished copper. But even so, you can see how strong that that color was. And this is almost a little bit too saturated. So now I'm like, I want it to match my other coppers. So I'm going to pop actually in a drop of the new copper. Bleach it out a little bit. That's a little better. Yeah, that'll work. This one's a little better. That's what I wanted it to kind of be. I do feel like I need a little bit more white in that now, though. Call them a full 10 days. Oh my gosh, yeah. Are you doing the trazodone or did you not? Did you only have a small dose of that? Because, yeah, if you want... That's the hardest part. Like, when your puppy is really energetic and you have a little vet thing that... You know, you have to keep them calm for so they heal okay. But the puppy has no idea, and so the puppy is not cooperating. That's the hardest part. That's a very orangey color. Well, we'll see how it works. I have to remember to take Kiki in for a couple of visits to the vet just to try to get her acclimated to this new vet and have good good memories of it or good associations with it. Trying today without it, yeah. That's fair. I'm not somebody who likes to depend on meds, so I get it. Yeah, see this color has gone less pink. Less pink on the copper, and that's not good because that honestly could screw me up. So I'm going to try to mix up a new batch. Sometimes when you've pushed a color too far and you're like, no, that's too orange. I mean, it'll be a nice orangey copper, but the rest of my copper isn't that color. So I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do a 50-50 and see what I can do. Just a tiny touch. And probably what it is I only used a touch of the yellow before, and this time I put a full drop in, so that shifted it to orange. This would make a great bright copper, like as far as like a slightly tarnished one where it gets really, really orange before it starts turning brown. It would make good for that color, and if I'd done that color on the rest of the model, then I'd be all over it, but I didn't, so we are going to go back to the drawing board and do just a tiny bit of yellow on the tip of my brush. Just enough to warm it up a little bit. There. This is more like a third of a drop. And it should give me what I want. Yeah, that's good. Not as orange. You can see how that's more pink up here, pinkish brown. And that's copper colored, so perfect. And I'm only going to put 1 drop of water into it. Yeah. Well, Kiki's chewing her bone. That's good. But yeah, the Keekers is, she takes less distractions now. Like, she's definitely shifted toward, I don't always have to be stuffing a toy or a chew or a frozen treat in her mouth. I think maybe she's just better with me because she gets so excited when David comes home from work that it derails her brain. And also I work with her more because I'm here with her at home every day. So I think that's probably why she's not as good for him as she is for me. Plus, you know, when she's really bad, he just wants to like walk out of the room, right? And that's what he has to do because she won't come down. So he'll go in the back, and then he's in the back room, you know, hobby room, for an hour, and then when he comes back out, it's like he came home all over again. So I've been trying to get her chewing some chews in the hobby room at night where she can just be with us and not be a pain in the butt. And it's working a little bit. Thing is, you really can't have her back there when like you're playing video games or something, because she will absolutely be disruptive. You will die. You will die a lot in the video game if you have the Kiki back there. So it's a work in progress. Eventually she'll be able to hang out there. I'm not quite to the point where I can have her in the TV room with me while I'm watching like Overwatch and knitting. But I'm getting close. Like, she's kind of almost got it. It depends on how riled up she is. Like, she stopped trying to jump up on top of me on the couch, but she still wants to, like, try to eat my yarn. So the knitting is a work in progress. Hey, Mac. Hey, JC. Yeah, Kiki's like, no, shoot that. Shoot the Reaper, shoot the Reaper. Here, I will jump on you. Shove your mouse. Oh, no, his mama. The Reaper's going to Death Blossom. Kill him, kill him, kill him. David and I did play some Overwatch last night. It was fun. We had some good games. This Monday is not so Monday-ish. It's Monday-ish because it's very full, but so far it is not a terrible Monday. Knock on imitation wood. So we'll just get all these rings blocked in here. I feel like I do want a little bit more tarnished copper for shadows. We'll see. We'll see. But we got those rings on. Now we need to get these rings done. Oh, you're off work. Nice. Good. Good. In writing news, I'm continuing to work through my proof copy of my manuscript to make the little tiny corrections that need to be done. I'm about halfway through the book now, so it feels like I'm close. The last half of the book moves much faster. So we'll see how many more mistakes I find. So far I have a whole page of mistakes that I found, even though this book has been like essentially rewritten multiple times and edited at least 27 times, literally, at this point. But all right, so I'm going to bring in some of this russet brown, put my shadows in. With rings, rings are tiny cylinders, and we're going to do them a lot like we did the bracelets, where you really just have to figure out where your highlight's going to cut off when the surface falls off. That's where you put your shadow. And I'm using russet brown for my shadows. I probably need to do a shadow that's a little darker, probably black and brown, but I'm just not there yet. We'll see, though. I might not need it. These are such small bands that the russet might be dark enough. It's pretty dark there. Here, I'm going to get down here. So I'm just blocking in a russet brown shadow there. You guys can see it. Oh, yeah. That's good, Shadow Raven. Oh, good. Yeah, glad that your local store stocks Reaper. Excellent, excellent. Yes. Shadow just a little bit darker in here. There. All right. Whole box of minis. Oh, nice. I was just talking about how that totally doesn't work for me. The start of the stream, JC, was about motivation. I talk a lot about motivation in mini painting because a lot of people like have trouble, myself included. And I've got many, many years in the hobby now, so I've like made some conclusions about my own motivation. So I try to help. I try to share all the knowledge that I glean about staying motivated in the hobby. All right, there's stuff down here. I think I want to block in the tooling on the leather, and then we'll do the cage as well. And I'm really tight in. So one of these little things is there's a little bit of baubles here on the little frog leg. And I'm just gonna tap in a little bit of highlight there, just so it makes it look like stuff. But yeah, one of the advice pieces, JC, is to figure out how many things you can work on at once without losing inspiration on them. A lot of people like start something and then they get distracted and they move on to a different thing until suddenly they've got a whole table of miniatures that are all partially done, and then that starts to weigh on them, weigh on their souls. So yeah, probably the best thing you can do, other than just to, you know, enjoy your new hobby and explore it, is don't judge yourself, but kind of just pay attention. Pay attention, like if you can work on 3 things at once and still stay excited about all of them, or if you can work on a dozen things at once and stay excited. But if you notice yourself losing excitement about a model, try to kind of like game your brain and figure out, so what is making me like, what specifically, why am I feeling like I don't want to finish this model? Yeah, that kind of thing. Figuring that out can help you create a hobby that's really sustainable for you. One that you can like stay motivated and stay excited about the stuff you're working on. Yeah. Yep. I get overwhelmed too. Yeah. Good. Nice. Well, 2 ogres shouldn't be too bad because you can do all the leather at once and all the cloth at once and stuff like that, right? No, it sounds like you're going about it really well, JC. Really, really good strat. That's what I didn't get at first. I was very, very distractible. And I also am a slow painter, so it's hard. What I've learned is that because I'm slow and because my brain gets bored easily, I tend to ground out on bigger or more complicated projects. Dragons, anybody? So in order for me to complete a giant project, I need to be like, it needs to be something I really love and stay focused on. Like my giant Overwatch statue that I did. I always had motivation to work on it because I was part of an Overwatch Discord where people really loved the painting stuff. So they loved art. So they always gave me encouragement when I was working on Soldier. And of course we were all talking about Overwatch all the time, and that just made me want to finish the statue. Oh yeah, 6-year-old son. Yep, that'll take your time. For sure. But on the plus side, when he gets to be 9, Frank, you can introduce him to mini painting. Sometimes even sooner. At Paint Club, when I was at Reaper still, when I was at the headquarters instead of remote, there was a family, there was a dad who would bring in his daughters, and he started bringing them in when they were 5 to Paint Club. And, you know, at that point, they're just splashing color on big models. But by the time they got to be 8 or 9, like, those girls would, like, be into it. Like, he had one older daughter, well, she was 5 when she started coming, but then I think by the time I moved, she was, like, 9 or 10, and then her sisters, who were 5, they were twin sisters, and they came. started coming. But so kids can totally get interested in it as 5 or 6, though they won't have the fine motor for it generally. But by the time they're 9 or 10, they are capable of putting together a pretty darn good mini. Yeah. Cool. Cool. Yeah, it's a great hobby. I mean, it's great because they can do it with you, right? So... Just going to do some little bit of real pale white highlight here. I'm going to bring in some shadow here too. You know, I mean, the best you can do is just keep exposing them to it. If they want to paint with you, great. If they don't, then great. But we get seriously interested in things because we get exposed to them, and then continued exposure, right? And it suits, something about them kind of suits our mentality. So yeah, fingers crossed he'll learn to, you know, love the hobby like you do. And even if, you know, he just picks it up and then puts it down and then maybe picks it up again at some point, it's the kind of hobby that you come back to. I mean, many of us, of course, have come back to the hobby through the years after taking a long break, just like yourself, so... All right, so a little bit of highlight there. I'm losing a bit of my orange, so... Yeah, it's raining. We've got a few days of rain lined up now. We had a little bit on and off, but today looks like it's going to be a solid rainy day. Like, it is a uniform gray outside. It is quite dark. And you all can hear the rain through my my mic. Nice, JC. Yeah, it's a contagious hobby. And it's better with friends. Because then you can help each other. You can, you know, each of you will learn different things and can help the other one with difficulties and problems. And you can encourage each other and admire each other's work. Yeah. And plus you just paint together. Painting with friends is awesome. Just a little bit, and it's not, we've lost a lot of orange. You can see I've got a lot of highlights on here, so I've lost a lot of this richness of color. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my tarnished copper straight from the bottle, and I'm going to do a glaze over it. So let's get that mixed up. It's it's not a game, but it's a series on Netflix, Twistedoma. Yeah, I know, right? It's great nap weather. When I get back to my palette. The Witcher actually technically is a series of books that got adapted for a video game, which became very successful, which attracted the attention of Netflix because of the success of many fantasy series right now. And so now the author went from, like, I think is he Polish or Czech? I can't remember. I think maybe Polish. But he went from, like, almost unknown outside of his own country to, like, one of the top 3 authors on, like, the Amazon Kindle store. Like, I know that after Witcher 3 came out, I actually did look up the books, and I actually downloaded and read the first couple, so... Oh, Polish, that's what I thought. Yeah. And, I mean, the great thing about that is, you know, like, he got new fans of his books from the video game, and now the series is getting him even more new fans of the book, right? So, of the books, I should say. There are many books. Oh, he hates the Witcher game? That's too bad. Well, he can hate it all he wants. It's gotten him a ton of audience, so sometimes it be like that. Sometimes they do things with your IP and you're just like, that's not how it would be. And, you know, as an author, the only thing you can really do is write more books. Or take, you know, if you have the opportunity, you could always try to take the rights away. But that would be kind of silly because a lot of people really like the video games. So, never know. All right, so I glazed a bit more orange onto there so that it looks more like the copper here. This is the tarnished copper color, and it's a glaze because you can see how thin it is. You can see it's really just colored water. I made it a little stronger than I would normally, just because I did want to knock down. I wanted to saturate it, and this tiny area is really hard to make a bright color. So, Siri Shadow Raven. Siri's my favorite. Yeah, the books are a hard read. I like his world building, but they're definitely not an easy read. They're very gritty. But yeah, once you sign the rights to your IP out to somebody, I mean, they can do what they want with it within, you know, the terms of the agreement. So I'm sad he doesn't like the games, but we'll see. Henry was I mean, he was perfect for Geralt, but I will give I'd give the new person a chance. You never know. Too gritty for you to... Yeah, it was very, very gritty. So it really depends on... Because there's still, like... Even though Mr. Cavill was, like, perfect for the character, the series still has a lot of good writing, good, you know, good characters, good cinematography, good everything. You know, it's got a lot of really cool stuff going for it. So it depends. Yeah. Well, I just think Henry as Geralt is, like, super hot. We've talked about that. But, you know, that's me. We stopped watching that show because I was, like, you know, I couldn't stop drooling pretty much, so... David didn't get into it. But that may have been because of my drool. I don't know. Oh, dear. Like I said, I go for that silver-haired elf lord type meme. So, you know, it could have been my drool. Yeah. Yep, I've read The Lies of Lachlan Moore. Fantasy heist is quite a fun genre at times. I liked it. I didn't like... It wasn't contagious-like, where I didn't seek out the later books, if there were later books. I think because with me, I have to... For me to follow a series, there has to be a character or group of characters that I absolutely adore. And that one didn't quite get it for me. Alright, so we're getting in here. We're going to hit these little details. And get the corners. These will come up to white, the corner eventually, but for now I'm just kind of trying to block in. Yeah, Commander Salamander, and a lot of times the author doesn't have any say in that. That's a sad thing, right? We cannot all be Gurm, who, you know, essentially got executive producer status. But even with Game of Thrones, he started out, he told, like, he warned people, you know, this may not end like the books because they're going to depart from the story at some point. So, and they departed in a number of ways, but... At this point, I think what is wise, if you are a fan of various fantasy or science fiction books that, you know, with the success of many of these series are likely to be adapted at some point in the future, is to, I think the most helpful, I forget which author said this, but he's like, you've got to think of it as a different version of the story. You've got to not expect it to be in line. Maybe part of the story is perfectly in line with the books and you're going to be happy, but don't expect it to be that. Always treat it as a derivative story based on the original. And if you do that, then you can be happy with, like, one of your favorite worlds being out there in visual media, and hopefully not be too disappointed that they didn't stick to the story. I think it's just hard to adapt Tolkien, Mac Attack. I don't know. Henry is like producing that sucker, and he is a super Warhammer geek, a super Warhammer nerd. Frank, like that gives me, after watching interviews with him, and he's got producer on this thing, so he actually can call the shots on this one, unlike Witcher. So yeah, I think he's a fan, and hopefully he's, I mean, honestly, I will be honest with you, I think 40K needs humanization, and I think that it won't be, it may become more, you're going to have sympathetic characters. I find very few sympathetic characters in 40K, for me. Because a lot of it is written in the grimdark, and I would welcome a slightly less grimdark version, but maybe Henry goes for the grimdark, and maybe there will be no characters that don't die at the end. I have no idea. Yeah, but I'll be interested to see what story they decide to tell, right? That'll make it for me. Right, exactly. And the trailer that I saw had a female Imperial Guardsman, which I really appreciated. So I hope that they manage to... You know, it's hard to keep an Imperial Guardsman alive in the 40K universe, but I hope they manage it. At least Commissar Yarrick managed it. I mean, he pretty much became half orc by the end, but... You know... But yeah, I would like for Henry to find some humanity in the 40K universe, and because the problem is without the humanity, without the human story, you lose how dark everything is. You have to have a foil. You have to have a foil of light to emphasize the dark, and I think that's where 40K just kind of gets stuck on the everything is dark, dark, dark. That's fair, Richard. I liked all of the Lord of the Rings movies, even the departure from canon. But I'm not a Tolkienist. I was not completely stuck on, even though I've read Tolkien since I was a kid, I was okay with the changes. But yeah, people who aren't, fair enough. You know what? Any media, any creative undertaking, you know, everybody's within their rights to like or not, and it's you, right? It's your decision. I'm not going to argue with people. Like, if you like stuff, you like it. Things that you like, I probably don't like, and vice versa. So that's okay. Not really. The Hobbit, they went a little bit too kiddie with it. I like some aspects of it, but I think they just went a little bit too, like, weird action movie with it at points, and I felt like there were too many subplots. And I feel like they did that in order to, like, make it into 3 movies. And I wonder if... Because I'm sure that, like, you could easily have done just 2 movies, I think, with it. But maybe the studio had some words in that. The problem with all this stuff and criticizing it is you never know who's, like, the person who made the call, right? You never know if it was the studio that demanded 3 movies, so they had to fill out a script for 3 movies. You never know who had the call on the changes or why, and you just make your call as to whether you like it or not. Oh, Sword of Truth would be hard to adapt. Yeah. The Hobbit was a children's book. It's fair, right, Magadak? So yeah. I don't know, David Eddings has a lot of thinking. And it isn't high on action, at least not in some of the... I remember those books. I read them when I was a teenager, I think. And I was just like, there were some characters I really liked. But I just stopped reading him after a point. He was very heavy. Yeah, that's really... If they would have just stuck to Bilbo, I think the Bilbo parts of The Hobbit are actually quite good. See, and that's funny, Richard, because at least Neil has... he, like, had serious creative control over a lot of that stuff, right? But it is a thing, and this happens. It's so funny to me as a writer and as a person who enjoys consuming other writers' work. But it's really funny to me that sometimes when the writer goes back to retcon something or they change something in a new version, you know, in say in a movie or TV version of their works, that the fans really don't like it, right? Even when the author's like, no, this is the way I wanted the story to be in the first place, you as the writer are not always the best judge of what your fans will like. You know, and that's just a funny thing about books and about characters and story, right? As I've finished my own book and get ready to publish it, I remind myself of this as often as I can. Once you have put the work out into the world, it is no longer yours. It belongs to every person that reads it, and all of them will get something different out of it. And it is not better and it is not worse, but it is the truth. So, stories are, the way that our brains work on story is super fascinating. Like, because it's just, once you put it out there, people read it, they interpret it, they may get a feel for a character that's different than what you set out to do. And they may love that. And you may be like, but that's not a thing, it doesn't exist. They're like, that's what I got from the book and I love it. And guess what, writer? You can't change that. That's the way they experience your story, and they love it, so you should be happy. Like, I feel like it's a sticky world of IP, right? As a writer, you have to protect your IP if you ever sign any of it away, but at the same time, you've just thrown your IP to the winds to your readers, right? They're all going to have, like, their version of the story and things that they love that are different. It's fascinating. It's just freaking fascinating. Yeah, Valendar. Yeah. And when I was a kid and I was in school and reading all these books, I would always challenge the teacher when they would try to like put forth an interpretation. Well, this is what the author, because they never presented it as this is what the author could have meant. It was always, well, the author meant this. And I'm like, well, how do you know? How do you know the writer didn't just write it because he liked the story, right? As an aspiring writer myself, I really would push teachers on that, and they hated it. They hated it. But that kind of, like, that professor... Although you know what? That's kind of but isn't that the flip side of what I just said? It's like once you put your work out there, people are able to interpret it however they like. And they will build cast iron cases for an interpretation of the story that you really didn't intend. But obviously the seed of it was there. So that's how it is in their head, that you've got to let it go. You should never get mad at your readers for liking your work, even if you think they don't like it for the right reasons. Like, I feel like that's the silliest thing a writer can do. Just be happy that you have fans who love your work enough to analyze the bejeebus out of it, or to just sit down and enjoy it on an afternoon, right? Yeah. Cool, Commander Salamander, yeah. Yeah, see, Anne McCaffrey is one of my all-time idols. That woman, I'm so sad I never got to meet her. She was the first science fiction fantasy author that whose work I really fell in love with. But that's absolutely the right attitude. It really is. Once your work is out there, it's not yours anymore. Write another book. I'm gonna highlight a little bit down here, just to bring these little cage struts out, so we've got some light in there. That maybe was a little bit much. Yeah, by all accounts, she was a wonderful person. Yeah, Bradbury wrote Fahrenheit 451. Yes, yes, yeah. Yeah, I never want to be that author. Like if I actually get people who read my book, like if they interpret it completely differently, if they start assigning all sorts of socioeconomic and political and other meanings to it that I didn't mean, you know what? That's cool. It's your version of it. It's in your own head. I'm not going to change your head. That's not my magic power. My magic power is to write a story that you loved enough to live in your head and change it to what you believe, right? It's cool. It's all cool. Like if anything, I think I'd be interested to see what people did, and maybe if they like interpreted it in a way that was really against my own beliefs, I would get mad. But you know what? You got to step back at that point and go, all right, I'm just not going to read this anymore. I'm going to ignore this. This exists. Yeah. Yeah, well, that's fair. She could obviously things about her attitude changed over time. You know, though, and this is one of the sad things about being famous on any level and choosing to interact with your fans on any level. But there will always be a day or a time in your life when you freak out about something and they will never let you go about it. Like, you must always take these stories with a grain of salt and remember that everyone is human. Like, there have been plenty of times that I have reacted really badly socially, and afterwards I'm like, what the heck was I thinking or doing, right? But it was because I was stressed and I was on low sleep and I just was freaking out on another level for some other reason. You got to remember, people are human. Obviously, she relented along the way and, maybe got ashamed of herself a little bit. Maybe not, but you know what? People are people. Famous people are just people who got famous. It's like, I try really hard to be really, like, cool at cons and everything, but there are some times at cons I'm exhausted, and I may have offended people in the past, right? Because I tend to speak my mind, and that can be a problem. So, like, if I have ever offended any of you, like, I'm going to apologize, but it happens. And it's not like I'm a terrible person. It's just that sometimes I'm overloaded. And I'm not the only human who's like that, so. Yes, totally going off in your own head canon. Yes, head canon, Big Chimpo, you do that. You have to make up you have to read my story and make up some big socioeconomic thesis, some socioeconomic political thesis about it. Well, she's really interpreting the class system, or something like, pretend you're the worst literature professor ever. And we will have a laugh. Yeah. Yeah, right. The movie, that's why I say it's like just a reinterpretation of the story and the characters. It's almost like looking at every movie version of a book kind of as if it's an anime where they're using the characters in the setting, but they're making a different story out of it. Like, it's a different version. But yeah, I mean, the Starship Troopers movie was fun. I can't get through the book. The book was very heavy, and I was not in a highline mode when I tried to read it. There are some highline stuff. I love The Cat Who Walks Through Walls, and, what was the other one I really like? I was okay with Stranger in a Strange Land, but it was way too much Heinlein-y stuff. He's really good at dialogue, though. Really, really good at dialogue, or was. But yeah. Yeah. Tweet longer incoming. Thanks, Big Chimpo. I'll take you up on it. Oh, man. But yeah, and just like watching the range of how everybody's reacting to various things that we're talking about on stream right now. Like, this is the best sort of conversation. This is why I love you guys. Because, we all have different reactions to the different franchises and the different stories that we're bringing up. But we're all like, we're all just like giving our opinion, and then that's that, right? We're not like yammering on like our opinion has to be the only one. And we can acknowledge that, you know, everybody's got their own truth on this one. That's what I love about you guys. One of the many things I love about you. That and you let me yammer on about, you know, like self-awareness and hacking your motivation and all these weird self-helpy mumbo jumbo how to love your hobby better discussions. So we're going in. I'm stippling a little bit here, but I'm watching it. I don't necessarily want to give a totally rough texture, but I mean, if I'm going to put verdigris on here, then it kind of would be a little bit rough. The buildup would cause a texture. Yeah. Yeah, I like Cat Who Walks Through Walls. It's one of my favorites. Yeah, and actually, yeah, who was it? It's a book I'm reading right now on the kind of the cumulative advantage marketing book about being an author. But that guy, he brings up the whole thing how you can read a book and your experience of the book becomes your memory of the book. And this is how you can get people interpreting the book in different ways. Because you've made an emotional connection to that book, just like you said. And then your memory of that book is kind of like, it's about your experience that you had while reading it. And this guy was like, you know, I went back and read like X and Y book later, and I was like, my brain was disappointed because I couldn't recreate the experience I had reading them as a 14-year-old, right? Because it was just a different experience. I'm a different person now. And so it's odd. Yeah, some people are like that, Mac, and that's fine. I mean, that's what keeps people from bugging us artists at ReaperCon, though, and we really wish you would bug us more. I mean, definitely not bugging people when they're just like wandering, you know, the halls or running out to lunch with friends, right? But if an artist has made themselves available, or an author, like if they're doing a signing or they're, you know, they're doing a Q&A or whatever, I mean, then there's no harm in greeting them and telling them that you absolutely love their work and thank you for all their hard work, right? That's probably the best thing, you know. And then you'll find out if they really want to interact, because they'll ask you more questions. But if they don't, and they say thank you, then awesome. You still gave them a happy. Creating and writing in particular, is a very lonely game. But it is also an introvert's game, so some writers just really are awkward about interacting with fans. And some are better, but... So a little bit of reflected light here. We've got that bright white highlight on the corners here. Oh, well, I have a couple of names. My painting name is Ann Forster, Foerster. That's my my old name. And my author name, I actually kept my my last marriage name, so A.E. Becker, because it's easy to remember. My maiden name, though I use it for mini painting, is really hard to remember the spelling on, and also you don't want to ever... with female authors, it's often advised not to use your real current name. There have been, unfortunately, instances of stalkings and things like that, and yeah, so I'm using a pseudonym for my for my book. Yes, the professional name. Yeah, so I always used to joke that, you know, taking a new name when I got married was just giving me a secret identity so that I could like actually like escape at some point from reality if I wanted to. But yeah, so I was gonna use a pen name for my books anyway, so I just chose to use my old name. But yeah, and I'll let you guys know. I am, you know, It was the 23rd. I knew I wasn't going to make that because of the Arizona trip. I thought about March 2nd, but that's coming up so soon, and I want to make sure I can make all those corrections. Mid-March is now my estimate, Kodiak. I'm leaving it loose because I don't need more stress. I've been really just kind of like trying to pay attention to how stressed I'm getting at any given point and what helps me. So with all the different stuff I do, because you guys know I have a lot on my plate at any given point. But I'm pretty confident that it'll be out before we're midway through March or right around the midpoint of March. That gives me, it might be out a little earlier. I just don't want to give myself this crushing deadline because I'm impatient enough to get it out. I know that I'm not like going to slack off on it. Right now I have to finish reading my proof and making those changes. I'm almost done with my short story for my mailing list. It's a giveaway for people who want to sign up to my author mailing list. I wanted to get that done. So I worked on that this weekend a lot, and it's almost finished. I'm at that final confrontation scene. I'm super excited to write that. It's a not very short story at this point. It's over, I think it's into the 16,000 words point at this point. It may end up being 17 or 18,000 words, so it's actually a short novella. But it'll be free for people. And it brings up the background of two of the side characters from the main book. And it also establishes some backstory for those characters. So it will be actually canon, so to speak. Yes. Yeah, it's good. We like it when people come by and talk to us, Twisted Oma. Oh, no problem. You guys will know. Well, actually, Turgeon, that was the day I was thinking of, but for a different reason than you might think. So, a decade ago, a little bit more than a decade ago, before I started writing this book, I submitted to go to a really high-end professional writer's workshop called Viable Paradise. And I remember sending my submission in on March 17th. And lo and behold, I got accepted. And that was the first, I got to learn under people like John Scalzi and Elizabeth Bear and the chief editor of Tor Books, Patrick Nielsen Hayden, and his wife, who's a consulting editor at Tor Book, Teresa Nielsen Hayden. And also Stephen Gould, who would later become the president of the Science Fiction and Fantasy Writers of America. I think he's no longer serving in that capacity, but he was for a couple of years. So those are the caliber of people that I got to learn from by getting into that workshop. So, and I still count it as a very formative experience. It was my first window into all of the instructors decide who they're going to do, who they want to one-on-one with. And one of the people who took my one-on-one was Teresa Nielsen Hayden. And that woman opened my eyes to editing in a way that I still thank my lucky stars for today. I learned so much in that one-on-one. And then Scalzi and Stephen Gould had me and 5 other writers for our 2-on-1 kind of critique session. And I got probably my best advice from Scalzi. Did not really. John Scalzi ripped me a new one in that session, and I was you know what, I needed to hear it. So, learning to take feedback. There are writers who probably would have been crushed to have John Scalzi tell them never do this again. But I was like, oh, all right, John, I'm listening. My problem is that I never write a short story, Luzana. I don't like short fiction. I really prefer novels. So this has been a struggle to write, and that's why it's 17,000 words now. So it's unlikely that I'll do many short stories as backstories, but there's certainly room for it in the world, so I might. Every once in a while, I'll probably forget and decide to do one and remember why I hate writing short fiction. Oh, no, Pendrake. I've never written a 2,500 words story in my life. My average and the shortest I've ever been able to write is 6,500 words. So 16,000 divided by 6,500, more like it. Cool. Yeah, he's cool. But man, you get him in a critique session. If he thinks you can take it, he'll deal it. Oh, interesting. On the Lizardmen Army forums. Yeah, 2,500 words. Yeah. Yeah, but I can't write a 2,500 word story. Or if I did, I'd hate it. Like, I've tried. There was a long time when I was first experimenting with writing that I tried to write short stories. And then there was a time after Viable Paradise when I was working on my plotting where I really felt I needed to concentrate on short fiction to understand structure. So I wrote a lot of short stories, but none of them were shorter than 6,500 words. Probably 7,500 to 8K is my usual comfort level if I was writing for a magazine, but... That said, writing the short fiction did what I wanted it to do. It did hammer, like, plot structure into my brain, and I needed that, so. Yes, never do X. Well, except that, like, there was a big weakness in my writing, Mac Attack. He zeroed right in on it. And yes, people have gotten away with writing the way that he didn't like before, but since I stopped doing it, my writing is N times better. Like, the thing is that you can be weak in one area as a writer and still be a bestseller. But in order for that to happen, you have to be so strong in all the other areas, right? Like, you can have really weak world building, but your plotting and your characterization is intense and you write thrillers. So, and people love them. And so they don't care if your world building is weak, right? Yeah, John Scalzi just takes the flak. You're right. Yep. Oh, no, I don't like those. Yeah, no, the thing is, Valendar, my strengths are in characterization and world building. You don't get 100-word story out of somebody whose strengths are in that area. When you've got somebody who's got really good at plots and twists, maybe you can pop that 100-word story out there and make it really punch somebody. But yeah. And honestly, there are things that book does terribly and things that it does very well. Obviously, it does something well because it has tons of readers who adore it. So the whole 50 Shades thing. People always bring up those books as a bad example. Like, the thing that floors me though is when I'm looking at writers communities and somebody like disses Harry Potter. And I'm like, I started rereading the first book at the end of last year. She's a good writer. Does she have weaknesses? Yes. Does she have strengths that more than compensate for them? Yes. You know, I think whenever you get... Right. Yep. And you know what? She wrote what she wanted. Like, 50 Shades author knew what she wanted to write. She wrote it unapologetically, and it appealed to folks. It isn't the type of story I would ever enjoy, but I'm not going to judge it on that. Like, when it comes down to it, it comes back, again, to the fan experience. So, it's all good. It's all good. Like, if only... The thing is, it's like, okay, if only good books ever succeeded, which doesn't happen... Like, how do you define good? Yeah, right, Bill Robertson, exactly right. Right, exactly. Like, if it sells, somebody, like, okay, a lot of the people who bought it maybe were buying it out of curiosity, but there was still a significant number of people who bought it who honestly wanted to read it and enjoyed it because they stuck around for more books. Like, that's what they wanted. She gave them what they wanted. And it was like, if you are true to yourself as an author, I think you write the books that you would like to read, right? So, and apparently, you know, and so then you just have to hope that you aren't the only one who really was wanting a book that did that. Yeah, it's an interesting world. It's interesting. Oh wait, I lost. Look at how big that highlight got. We lost all the copperiness. So let's do that. Yeah, Piers Anthony. Yep. I mean, that's what a lot of the, like, I do a lot of always just kind of reading and listening to industry people talk about the industry. And one of my favorites, the lady who got me into Clifton Strengths, is always like, you know what? If your book doesn't sell right away, it isn't like people are making a judgment call on you. It's just that the market doesn't want your book right now. And that's not like saying that your book isn't good. It just means that right now it's not appealing to the market, which is a conglomeration of all the things that people are looking for to read, right? So personally, these are the books that I always like. I loved Stardust by Neil Gaiman, and I loved Deerskin by Robin McKinley, and all of those kind of fairy tale but reimaginings. Not really the fairy tale, but kind of based on the fairy tale type stories. So that's why I wrote these. And I'm not going to regret, even if they don't sell. And I certainly don't expect the one book to sell. Definitely need more than one, but I'm going to be perfectly happy just getting them out there. So we're doing a little bit of highlighting there, just kind of like a little cone shape on the top there. Oh, motion sick of you reading car, yeah. Gonna highlight that. I read the early Xanth books as a kid, but then I stopped reading Piers and Anthony later on. I have problems with his female archetypes, but you know, it is what it is. We'll not trash anybody too hard on the stream here. So a little bit of highlighting there, you can kind of see we're bringing that out. I'm shading around it. I just want a little bit of a suggestion of a peaked roof and a highlight leading up to the chain there. I like Charles DeLint. I read a couple of his books. I didn't get drawn into his stuff like big time, but a lot of he's kind of in my genre in a weird way, but not necessarily, because he is urban fantasy. He's not like pure fantasy. Alrighty, let's see here. Oh boy, it's the end of stream, and I didn't quite get to all of my highlighting, but we did finish the lantern. Lantern or cage with tiny fish swimming in it. I don't know. I kind of wish that there had been a fishbowl on his belt. We could paint the fishbowl with the little fish in it. Yeah, I always do nonfiction on audio. I find that I can't do fiction. It's weird, but my brain gets really tired listening to fiction on audiobook. Maybe it's all the imagining. But I listen to nonfiction, so that always... I'm a self-improver, so that always works for me. I can find more than enough books. There we go. Well, we got a bit done, and we didn't finish out the rings, and we didn't finish out this other bag. But next time I think we're going to finish Fishy proper, because those are the only things that are left. And then I'll have to figure out, because right now his base is just sand as far as I'm concerned. I'll have to figure out if I want to put in more effort. Man, it is pouring out, Paul. I don't want to take you for a walk right now. Yeah, a little air jar with a human in it. Big Jimbo. Interesting calendar. Yeah. Yes, indeedy. Well, if the rain stops, then maybe I can actually take the paw for a walk. But right now, it is pouring. I can hear the heavy drops up there. I did decide to make ribs today, so I guess I'm going to go and put on the rub and let them sit out for a while. No, I don't want to do mud. Mud is boring. Mud is boring. I want sand. Yeah, I like ribs. Didn't have the oomph to do it yesterday, but I can do it today. Yeah. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for tuning in, of course. We adore you all. Tomorrow, Tomorrow we're back to Huntsman's Lodge Dude. And probably the fur. Probably the fur, I'm thinking. Oh, nice. Yeah, salmon is... I love salmon in the air fryer. That's like... I stopped making it in the oven, and I always do it in the air fryer now. I can make it perfect every time. Yeah. Oh, hi, Denethor. I do not have books per se. Usually, although people have asked me to, do a book forever. But I don't have a painting book. I do have a Patreon. That's patreon.com/paintingbig. I have a YouTube channel with free videos also that are on the fundamentals of miniature painting. But yeah, Reaper also has Learn to Paint kits that are written not by me, but by Rhonda, who also has a stream on here. Rhonda Bender, and she's very, very good at breaking down like the fundamentals of painting. So the Learn to Paint kits come with a booklet, a really actually quite substantial booklet, detailing the steps to paint the figures that are in the kits. So, but Reaper doesn't produce any painting books right now. Yeah. So mostly, though, Denethor, I'm on this stream every weekday morning, here in the States anyway, 11:30 a.m. USA Central Time. So we've done a lot of streams. So if you go to Reaper Miniatures YouTube, you can also see over 500 streams where I'm painting various models. So yeah, there's a lot of instructional material out there that isn't a book. Yeah, very forgiving as long as you don't overcook it. You kind of have to be ready to stick a probe in it. Figure out what doneness level you want. I like 130. Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, oven works. If you have a convection oven, it can put that nice crust on the outside. But yeah, I hope you enjoy it, Agent Marvel. I love salmon. We make it usually once a week. All right. There we are, everybody. I will be back tomorrow morning, and we will work on this guy. Quite the different size, aren't we? And yeah, we're getting close. Actually, we're getting close to done on a lot of these guys. Although he's got a lot of polish work. We did the whole base coat thing on him, so now I've got a lot of... Yeah, 130 is where I love it. They always say 125, and I'm like, no, it's a little bit underdone there. 130. Nail 130. Yeah. All right. Thank you, everybody. I'm gonna officially sign off now and pray that the rain lets up at some point today for poor Kiki. I'll probably have to make her a snuffle mat. Thank you all, everybody, and I will talk to you tomorrow morning. Bye-bye.